Janet, can you hear us okay?
Yes, go ahead 100%. Thank you.
Yeah, you're awesome. Appreciate it. Good morning, committee members and other parties of interest. This is our presentation for RPS-25-00191, Architectural/Engineering Services for Brandon Fire Station number 11 replacement, is being held in part by means of communications meeting technology. Active participation will be for committee members and presenting firms only. A recording of the meeting will be made available to the public and all other interested parties after the meeting has ended. Please be advised that the cone of silence is still in effect. All meetings and correspondence must include me. My name is Ethan Kersey, and I'm the senior buyer for this project. Again, for the record, this meeting is being recorded and has been publicly noticed. At this time, I will ask each committee member to introduce themselves for the record, beginning with the committee chairperson.
I'm Tara Williams, Architectural Services Manager for Capital Programs.
And this is Mansour Yazi, Capital Program Architecture Services.
Mario Bova, Capital Programs Architect. Chris Rideout, Infrastructure Manager, Hillsborough County Fire Rescue.
Thank you, guys. Our presenters will have a total of 30 minutes, 15 minutes for presentation and 15 minutes for Q&A. I will be timing the presentation and will announce when there are 2 minutes remaining in your presentation. Immediately following the presentation, we'll move on to the question portion. I will also track the time they have provided 2-minute warning when the question period is almost done. So, Long and Associates, please begin your presentation. I'll start the timer once you begin speaking.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm Lex Long with Long and Associates, architects and engineers, and president of the company. And I have with me today Travis Steed, right? Hello. Giovanna and Michael Knight, representing our civil team. So we've set this up to follow along with what you've asked for, basically team qualifications, approach, and ability for fire station number 11 in our approach. So when you surround yourself with right people, great things happen. And I think we have a great team and some information to show you today that goes well. You know most of us well and have had the opportunity to work with you for quite some time. Giovanna's done a great job with what we have to show you here too. And I thought she needs some experience to see what's going on in the world. She's almost an architect, like this close to registration test to go. So doing well there. You hit the button? Yeah. There you go. Okay. And all of our team members that we've listed here are minority related consultants that we would use, and we're committing at least 10% of our fees to these particular firms as a part of our overall work. Proximity to the site, we're 25 minutes away. Travis is just a few minutes.
3 minutes away.
Yeah, 3 minutes away. Brandon, and even better, these guys can walk across the street.
That's right, pretty much.
Literally. So I don't think it gets much better than that for Aurora and the civil folks. Just to mention something about our company, diversity is important. We are 77% diverse, and a breakdown of our overall folks, non-minority personnel versus female or other related minority personnel. That's just a commitment of how we're made and who we're made up of. And we're also a registered SBE with St. Petersburg, the city of St. Petersburg, and Hillsborough County Schools. Knowledge speaks, but wisdom listens. We'll want to spend time listening to what you have to say about the project and its particular needs.
Yes, so let's talk about our approach. So our approach is, as like I said, a lot of listening up front. A lot of, it's one of our typical design charrette meetings, but we have a lot of questions when we start, and we're going to need a lot of input from you and all the stakeholders of how best to meet your needs. That's how we like to work anyway. And our approach is all about sustainability. We, Lex, myself, and Bill that are on the team are all lead professionals, and we've together done a number of lead projects. So we just believe like sustainable design is good design, just good design decisions. Value enhancement, another part of our approach is, we understand the fixed budget and the constraints of that, and we'll work with you to, it's not plucking things off at the end, it's evaluating every decision for the best value for the county. We'll work with you on that. And we know it's all about controlling those costs, and this fancy graph here is just saying that the opportunities to save are the greatest at the beginning of the project now, and the cost to make changes just go up as we go through the project. And we'll help you work closely with you to manage that process. Make sure we're taking care of the dollars that are available. So let's talk about our approach to specifically your project, what we know about it. Here's the scope of work from the RFP. And so we know it's replacement with Brandon Fire Station number 11. It's phase construction to renovate the existing apparatus bay and then a new single-story living quarters. And it's got to remain in operation throughout construction. How important that is. We know this building. We've been there. I've been there. Our entire team of engineers have been there and evaluated the building. And it's pictures I took there, but it's approximately 1979 construction. Does not meet any current codes. No structural, wind loads, accessibility, no elevator. The systems are at the end of their useful life. It's a good candidate for a building replacement. So with that, the reason we know this is we've already been involved with you on the feasibility site and building study. And so again, we've had a chance to pour over the building and then the documents and do an existing building assessment. We looked in at your request, we looked into full replacement versus partial replacement, did test fit options for a prototype fire station, how they might fit on the site. Michael with Aurora and Chris worked on the site survey and site investigation, due diligence study and site plan layout. And that's what we're looking here is kind of the result of all that is this site plan here. And we know the unique site challenges. We know about the adjacent properties that were purchased to make this possible, the existing tower that's in the way and the plan for relocating that, the drainage and setback requirements and all those things that Michael's very, very aware of. And our team has studied the site, so there's no learning curve. And just we'll refer back to this, but on what we're looking at on the site plan is there's the pond to the north, parking, and then a proposed location for the living quarters, and then the red dashed boxes there are the existing apparatus bay and the existing living quarters that would have to remain until the new is constructed. With that, Michael, if you want to take the next couple of slides.
Sure. One of the major considerations that we looked at when we started doing the feasibility analysis for this property, there's always zoning, transportation, utilities, stormwater. Probably one of the key elements on this site is the stormwater. This is a very old developed part of Brandon. There's literally no stormwater collection systems in the road. Everything drains to the road, not really much of a swale, and then goes up to the intersection next to 90 and then just spreads out to the rest of the properties. So this red area represents the drainage basin that literally drains from almost up to 60 to the northwest and winds up, coming back onto the site. Part of the road, as you can see here, then turns and comes back to the site. So the stormwater pond is basically a walled, very deep walled pond, fenced, and will, fortunately for this area, the groundwater is very, very low. So it's the ideal location to put in a walled pond. If this was in an area where groundwater was high, that pond would be 3 times the size and pretty much take out most of your site. So we've looked at this. We know that this size pond will work. We can get that permitted. Some of the other issues on the site survey came in, and there's one of the houses, I believe it was this house here, went in for rezoning years ago, and the county had them dedicate like 15 feet of their property to right of way. So the property line actually jogs into the site. So we believe that the county owns property, the county owns a right of way. You may or may not, depending on during the process, you may want to vacate that 15 feet, or maybe nobody really is too concerned about it. But that is one of the issues on that site. Utilities, water and sewer are both available. The lift station that's on the site is very old. We recommended that be brought up to code and basically everything routed to a new lift station. The potable water service would likely also need to be upgraded. It's a very old service, and same with the fire backflow assembly. It's a very old system, and public utilities may very well also require that to be replaced. Access on the site is straightforward off of it's Ridge. I drive it every day and I can't remember. It's Ridgeway with Bridge. But overall on the site, it has direct access to on the west side of the property. Residential to the east, commercial to the south. So and some residential to the north. So there are some 20-foot buffers on the north and the east side that'll be required to be put in place. There's sufficient room.
There's a little jog, the 11
You
foot.
can see that there's sufficient room on the site to do the improvements and provide parking. And the nice thing is the way it's laid out is it can be built and constructed while leaving the station in service, which is key. So.
Thank you, Michael. Gio, you want to talk about our plans?
Sure. So what we have done here is we've taken your Armdale fire station as a prototype, and we created 3 different layouts that could work in the site using that prototype. This is your first one. It runs east-west, and that would be your new living quarters, and it connects to your existing apparatus bay that is going to be renovated. So we went ahead and we modeled all of those 3 options on your site so you could see what this would look like. You have your existing apparatus bay, your new living quarters, parking, pond, all of the requirements. Just another view of how that would look like as a site plan, and just a few really cool images that so you can picture what this could be. And then for our option 2, we are taking the same approach. We're just turning your new building north-south instead. And that's what we would get from this is you would have that attachment at the bottom of the screen right there. And this is what it would look like as, you know, your site. That building would take a little bit more space. It pushes back the parking a little bit, and the pond is a little bit smaller. And then for your third option, we took a little bit of a different approach with this one. We have removed your existing apparatus bay, and we have given you an entirely new project with the living quarters and the apparatus bay completely integrated. And this would be built to our current building codes. Everything would be up to date and new.
So yeah, so again, as Gio said, we looked at some different options. This one, with the idea of the advantage, one advantage we see here is the ability to, it's not shown on the screen, but the entire apparatus bay and living quarters could remain while you construct the entire new fire station and then bring it down at the end and build the parking area. The phasing works with each of the options. The other 2 options, there's going to be a period of time where that existing apparatus bay is down for the complete rehaul and the structural renovations that are going to happen. So there's going to be a period of time with those 2 options where we can do it. It's just going to be a canopy structure temporarily. But we're looking at this as what would happen if we can build the whole thing up to current codes, fully from the ground up, and then go back and take the other one down. So there's a couple of views of what that can look like. Again, we push the apparatus bay back a bit to make sure that there's space for the vehicles to park and without crossing the right of way. So we just a little bit about the current trends, best practices. We're aware, we've done this with you several times. We know about the whole hot, warm, cold zone and the real importance of keeping the contaminants out of the living quarters and having a way to deal with that. And so with each of these floor plans, that's been accounted for. Each one of them has that yellow area there in yellow that is separate decon room, restrooms, and lockers, so that again, all of the contaminants can be removed before going into the green zone and making sure that area stays clean and healthy for the firefighters. And then there, of course, full HVAC separation as well to make sure, again, keeping those contaminants out of that zone. And just knowing the just best practices, again, robust materials, provided adequate storage, make sure everything's maintainable and cleanable and stands up to very unusual fact that it's a building that's lived in 24 hours a day, so it has to stand up to those conditions, and we can design it, build it that way. So let's talk about time and money. This is the part we have our little handouts that Lex has, but we really appreciate the chance to work with you guys on the feasibility study. We appreciate you trusting us with that, and we see the value in that. We see that the leg up that gives us, the time that we've already invested in this, and so that's part of what we're proposing to you today is we can give back the value of that work already done on the feasibility study as part of the Long Associates portion, $35,000 that we've invested in that so far. And again, that just is our way of accounting for the fact that we have already started this process. We're really ready to hit the ground running with it. And we talk about building costs. Part of what you've got on your handout there is a cost estimate. And we're looking at about $4.6 million for the building itself, about $1 million in site costs for budget range of 5.4 to 5.9 million is what we would anticipate for the size of the building. I feel like that's appropriate.
2 minutes left here.
Okay, all right. The last section about our ability, which is really just the fact that we've done this before. So we've done this. We did Waimama Fire Station 22 back in 2016, 9,000 square feet. Again, each of these is larger than the one we're talking about today, but 2.5 million back in those good old days before COVID. And it's 3 bays for that one. Some photos how that came out. And a couple years later, Fire Rescue 32 East Lake, 2018, 11,000 square feet, a little under $4 million. Photos of that. And then Fire Rescue Station 46 on Rodine Road, 2020, 4.4 million, 13,000 square feet. So just, we've done this before. We'd love the chance to do it again. Love working with you guys and we'd love to develop that, continue that relationship. Every day you make a commitment to serve, and we're just asking if you let us serve you. With that, we open it up for questions.
So I put together a cost estimate and a schedule run of kind of where we thought it might start. And the cost estimate really is based on the idea that we were keeping the existing apparatus bay and using kind of the current numbers that I'm sure you have, you can justify those same numbers on your current fire stations of what we're seeing. It might be a little more, I would expect it to be a little more if we demoed the apparatus bay, but the trade really is going to be some cost for the phasing ability of switching that around. And I put a contingency of 8% in there, $400,000 or so. We're going to try and balance some of that. So our range is 5.4 to just under $6 million or something, saying for this square footage. And then the guys, ran out a schedule here with various times to show that really the site permitting is red in the critical path. That's usually always the way it is. That we got to get all the site stuff done first, as you know, and turned in, it's viewed, you get all the agency approvals and all of that. And so that's pretty accurate with the fact that that would be critical path and they come together appropriately. And we could certainly bid and things like that, start that process early, reviews and that kind of stuff. We'll to see with the builder. So I'm sorry.
Everybody.
I guess everybody. So let's go into the question period here. I'll start and then you guys ask your first question.
Did I stop sharing for the question portion?
It is totally up to you.
I keep it up because I think we've had some questions where we refer back to them. So. You want me to start? So, we are right now using Rodine as one of our prototype stations.
Okay.
So a question I had is, based on your experience with Rodine and then any experience since then, are there changes you would have made to Rodine that you would implement for Brandon? How would you kind of take what you learned from that and roll it into this station?
Trying to think, I mean, the biggest difference is size, scale, and all
Sure.
that stuff. Smaller facility. We use a lot of these same things. That was the first one we worked on where we really involved the hot, cold zones and all that stuff. So, I mean, we would use those lessons learned. In fact, that, implementing those same strategies in the station, they seem to work well there.
Okay.
Our first question would be looking for feedback of, is it working? What isn't working from your perspective? From our perspective, it was, learned a lot and again, it was each of those three was an improvement on the previous one, we felt like, and how they functioned and how they're constructed. And we would like to do that again. But our first thing would be, again, sit down and ask a lot of questions of what's working, what's
size is the biggest stuff.
Yeah, the biggest difference, would be the size.
Here now, very small site.
Help me make sure I understand correctly. In all three of your options, we would keep crews in the existing station during construction, no need for.
Correct. So the first two options are really just what your RFP spells out, which are your apparatus bay stays throughout.
Yep.
The living quarter stays until the new living quarters are constructed, and then they can be taken down. The tricky part is the fact that while the apparatus bays get the intervention there for structural, it's going to mean you can't use it for a period of time.
Sure.
Yeah. But yes, each one would allow it to continue to be in operation the entire time.
Okay. We think we can do one where we start right at the edge of the apparatus bay north, which you were illustrating. And they leave that whole thing in place until it is built. We've got it. I think that approach should be investigated further as possible. I think it's saving time and money.
Giovanni, let's go back to
Back up.
the one you intruded to the apparatus bay.
So the first two options?
Chris, we're looking at two bays station here, right?
Two bay deep would work, but if we keep the existing apparatus
Three
bay,
of them, so.
Right, that's the difference. It's, what we're showing there, based on Armdale, is two that are double deep.
Right.
And we recognize that the big challenge on this side is the fact that you can't pull through.
No.
We understand that would be ideal, but that's
So Mike, okay, what is the setback in the back based on that? It's right there.
25 feet.
25 feet.
Yeah, each
25
of these, because Well, move slightly over that, but we can't go within 25 feet.
That's correct. 20 feet in the back.
Or right on, yeah.
25 feet
The buffering was 20 feet. Right.
The buffers are 20, yes,
on the,
on the north and the east side. But that's
East side, yes.
right.
the 20-foot tight B,
Right.
so you're gonna have trees and hedges, probably a fence.
Next, Travis, how you guys use any LBT?
Yes, all the time.
We're using a lot in schools, right?
That's the new trend is to not put in VCT anywhere.
Or take it
All
off.
deals there.
Replace all the BCD with LBT
I
on.
was taking a lot of abuse too.
Yes.
School, middle school, I'm doing right now, it takes a lot of abuse. Yeah.
What about PVC?
PVC or flooring. I haven't seen a whole lot of that from a trend standpoint right now. The LVT has been the real trend for us and all the related commercial and school work and government work we do, LVT.
We're transitioning more away from the polished concrete.
Mhm.
Our experience is it's nice in certain applications,
Yeah.
but and some of our sister agencies have expressed some of that same feedback,
Mhm.
which put us to an industrial grade LVT.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've been seeing a lot of that and it's, I mean, it's practically bulletproof, so to speak. I mean, it's pretty robust stuff, you know.
It has antibacterial properties and
Yeah.
all kinds of.
We've been using it a lot. Media centers, classrooms, all kinds of related spaces like that in a public setting. Especially the last 5 years, really taken off.
Yeah, there's definitely challenges with the concrete, with the concrete exposed and that, so it does.
Lily Martin.
Mhm. Right.
Can you touch on other types of materials that you're seeing used more frequently, just because Chris is always saying they kind of tear through things, you know, in all of their stations?
Yeah.
How do we make sure that,
Yeah.
you know, we have some longevity?
Yeah, I mean, solid surface,
Yeah.
materials where, is the best thing. Like I said, the LVT, I quit back to schools because the kids are beating it up really bad. And that's what we're doing there. It's always trying to find what's the most durable thing we can do. And again, the LVT is standing up to it. Again, solid surface does better than laminate where you can do it.
Yeah.
But millwork.
With actual millwork.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, solid surface.
Yeah, we're doing solid surface material.
Oh, you mean,
So, box, how many trees?
we're typically not, you could, I mean, that's just cost out of it.
Yeah.
We're doing
Anyway,
laminate.
but, you know, making all the tops solid surface, as
Anywhere you
one,
Yeah.
all the torque partitions and things, the solid phenolics, the floor finishes and things, usually a lot more tile, bigger sized tile rather than smaller, eliminate the grout, joints, a lot more tile on the walls, not just the wet wall, just because it's a little more robust than the drywall is. We're also seeing, some groups want us to put in,
RFP.
yeah, the
FRP.
Thank you. I couldn't get it. FRP, I couldn't, you were close, I couldn't get it out.
Yeah.
The FRP, there's one school we're looking at that's got it all over the place, they want it taken out because, you know, it's not, there's no color to it, you know, it's basically just pick a solid color kind of thing, it's got the dimple texture, you know. But for wipe down and cleanliness and all of that, we're seeing folks that want to put FRP in.
And what's
So-
epoxy painting?
You know, well, in lieu of epoxy painting, because the epoxy paint, you know, it's still over the drywall surface, it gets nicks and scratched, but the FRP is protected. When you've got equipment, you're moving around, you're banging into it some. You're not gonna see that in the FRP that you will with epoxy paint on it. You know, ceiling's epoxy paint in a wet space or a space with higher moisture. But we are seeing that, rather than like stainless steel sheeting or something like that. So those are some of the recent trends in.
You touched on ceilings. What other innovative material other than just epoxy or clay and ceiling tiles?
Oh, we've done wood slatted ceilings for like acoustical control. We've done all kinds of different lay-ins that can occur in the tile itself, or hard ceilings, coffers, what have you. You know, it depends on the space, what you're using it for, and what the cleanliness would be, which, you know, if you're gonna try to wipe it down
Yeah.
on a regular basis, if it's a moisture space versus the dry space. But we've done some pretty creative ceilings in more event-related spaces, you know, bigger conference-related media centers, things like that, where you get a little more more creative with your materials and stuff.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
About, want to talk about lead?
Sure. Sure, yeah, and as you mentioned lead in there, and we've typically, oftentimes, again, we kind of strive to design that way anyway, but it depends on, it's usually owner driven. So if you want, we've often been asked to, meet the lead criteria, but don't register it, don't.
It's certifiable.
Yeah, certifiable, exactly, and that's what we're usually, all the public entities require that, so that's.
Right. I'm lead accredited professional, Travis is, there's like 6 in our.
Bill, our mechanical engineer is also on the team.
Right. Most of our projects require us to follow those simple guidelines.
Transitioned in our newest designs and newest stations we have in construction, our new prototypes to mini or micro chillers. And that would be the application here rather than, traditional quasi-commercial or heavy-duty residential units. So that's an evolution. It's gonna be interesting to see how it works out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've done those before, phony chillers and micro chillers and things like that too. So yeah, I have experience in that.
I have another question. What do you think about project delivery methods? Do you recommend this be a hard bid, a CMAR project?
Okay, you're asking a question now. My preference is seeing the risk.
Yeah.
I grew up and came up from the hard bid world for me. I mean, I was in the late 80s, early 90s, everything we did for projects was hard bid. And I'm talking our municipal related work, sheriff's departments and schoolwork. And so we're well versed in handling bid. If you want a hard bid, I can handle that as well as anybody else can. But I've found that construction management at risk has provided a level of opportunity for team building and open book kind of resource opportunity to look at different ways to bid a project or to phase or schedule a project, which are all things that we have to make a decision about how to do that before it ever hits the street, and then put up with whatever the bid comes in at. Whereas getting them on board ahead of time is really the whole benefit of what I see at all, is getting those folks selected based on the qualifications, type of work they've done before and how all that fits. And negotiated a fee. There are other municipalities like yourself that negotiate fees that are reasonable and what you would expect if somebody was gonna bid it. But then have the opportunity to have them on board and work with the team throughout the whole process, the scheduling, the phasing. All those things are super important, particularly in a site like yours where you've already got a building sitting there. You're gonna have to work around some part of it. If it's a greenfield, changes your perspective a lot, right? You can do other things. I personally find that to be the best approach. You have to do your due diligence there, manage that too, just like you do anything else. But I find that it's less combative and what have you. And for our company and my position and how I was trained, and then that transition in the 90s into 2000 and into SEAM at risk is becoming a preferred method in the school boards and groups like that we do work with as well. We are an advocate for you. We defend you, whether you know it or not, the county knows it or not. Just like contractual language, we discourage changes in the drawings. Maybe my competition doesn't, I don't know. But I was always brought up that if we told them to do it a certain way, we expect the builder to build it that way. If they can't, because nothing's perfect, they should let us know what the difficulties are. We work together to get it figured out. But a random change to me is not an acceptable thing. You paid for the taxpayer dollars paid for this set of drawings, this effort of whoever does it for you and puts that together. You should expect that. And in our view, I teach my people, we defend that for you and for the county. It's the taxpayers, my money. So to me, that's important. And so in the hard bid process, it's possible to do all those things as well. It becomes a little more adversarial and sometimes you have to dig in. But I've done great projects with great builders there too, where it wasn't adversarial at all. We did whole schools together and it all worked itself out. And everybody understood the change order process and where things aren't perfect and you make adjustments accordingly because no job will be perfect regardless of your delivery method. So it works both ways. It just depends on your preference, but if you're asking me, which I think you did, construction management at risk would be my preferred method.
We could expect 4 months, a 4-month compressed schedule based on CM delivery, or
I think that there's,
Based off our bid or,
it looks like hard.
on my schedule there.
yeah.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, I think that it can be compressed, yeah. And I think that getting them on board earlier helps us to determine where there's overlaps and those other things that can occur. I mean, I'm presuming here, for example, that those processes have an opportunity to start earlier in the bid procurement and the selection process and all the other things. Sometimes county can't do that. You have other rules sometimes that get in your way, say, I gotta do this before I do that, right? But I'm trying to show overlap where I can show that, and I would try to do those things anywhere we can, because ultimately time is money for all of us, no matter what happens, right? So we want a short duration.
Especially with escalation and inflation.
Right, time is money.
Getting into it.
And I tell you, okay, you got a great point. One more thing I would bring up. We are purchasing things now at CM at risk where they're brought on board early, and we are buying the chillers and the equipment in schematics before we haven't done anything. But I've had my mechanical people run the loads and say, it's gonna be about this. We're gonna add 5% to this number, or 10% to this number. I need 30 tons cooling, let's say, and we'll make it a 34-ton chiller or something, just to, whatever it is. Just make sure we're covered. Order it now, because it takes so long to get. And then we know, hey, inflation, tariffs, whatever, it's fine. We've already placed the order. It's showing up.
It
We're
takes
not
some of the
worried.
risk out of it.
Right, takes the risk out, takes the worry out. Nobody likes surprises. And in my world, I don't like surprises. So that's a great point. We're doing that in that delivery method. A lot harder to do a hard bid. You have to wait till the last minute.
You could do it off a schedule, pretty much, is what you're doing, right?
Yes,
For CM.
yes.
Off of mechanical schedule. not-
Right.
Right, mechanical
We
schedule.
schedule.
What you meant, that's what I, yes.
Okay, that is pretty much our time. We have 7 seconds. Any last
Oh,
second?
7 seconds.
Okay, well, thank you guys for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, guys.
Shut down. Everyone signed in?
If, yes, I think so. I think they're good.
So how's Carla adjusting to retirement?
She's being lazy.